are you, man? It's great to see you again.
Oh man, it is so good to see you, and thanks a lot for being a guest on this podcast.
Thanks for asking me.
Man, not a problem. Hey, let's start from the beginning. Your childhood in Munising, Michigan. What was that like?
Well, Munising, Michigan is where I graduated high school, actually. I was born in Flint,
Hmm.
and then my parents moved up to the Upper Peninsula to a town called Newberry. And then when I was about in the fourth grade, we moved again down into the lower part of the northern part of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And that town was Beulah, which is not very far from Traverse City. It's on the Lake Michigan side of Michigan. The Leelanau Peninsula, which is one of the more beautiful places on the planet, if you've ever get a chance to visit.
Hmm.
It is. I had no idea that my stomping grounds, would be such a sought after place for people to go to. But most of what I remember growing up was up in Newberry, where my grandparents lived, and my father was a nurse and later on a nurse anesthetist. And when he moved down state, we were there until my senior year. And then my senior year, they moved to Munising, where my father became the administrator of the hospital up there. So I spent
Wow.
my senior year at a school I'd never attended, which was fine. It was really nice. But I think of myself as most people who come from Michigan, especially small town Michigan, they just think of themselves as from Michigan, and we have a map on us all the time. Where did you live? Well, let me just show you where I used to live, right? Or I was up here in the Upper Peninsula part and right up here. So, but all the towns I grew up in, other than the town I was born in, were no more than about 2,000 to 3,000 people.
Very small towns.
Yeah.
All right. So, how did you get to the big state of Minnesota?
Well, when I was in Munising, I had some radio experience because of a radio station that was down south where we used to live. So when we moved up there, I didn't have any friends yet, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I did know that I could do that. So I went to the local radio station, which was WQXO. And talked to Morgan Marty, who was the owner and program director and pretty much all, chief cook and bottle washer. I think he was on the air more than anybody else because he lived upstairs of the place.
Wow.
And I just went in there with some experience and said, I just moved to town and I worked here and I'd like to work for you. And he hired me. And after that, my senior year of high school, my dad wanted me to go to college. And I didn't like school very much.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of college didn't appeal to me. I knew that I wanted to get to a city because I've been an actor, and I knew I was going to be an actor since I'm age 5, right? So I couldn't do it in a small town. I had to find a city.
Okay.
And I told my dad I'd go to at least maybe a radio school. I'll go to radio school. And we found one in Detroit called Specs Howard. And we found another one in Minneapolis called Brown Institute. And at the time, for a small town kid, Minneapolis just sounded a lot less scary than Detroit.
Wow.
So that's how I chose it. And then that's the first year I was in Minneapolis and went to school there. And it was a 9-month program for radio, television, broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the fall of September of 1982.
Okay.
And after that, I mean, Brown, one of the things about Brown is they said they'll get you a job. Which they never got me a job. But I spent $9,000 to find out that I had learned all the things they teach you in radio school by actually working at a radio station. This is how you turn the knob this way and that way, and this is the potentiometer, and this is how you cue up a record, and all that stuff that you learned in broadcasting school. I learned already, and I got paid to do it.
Right.
So from there, I took a couple of radio jobs back in Michigan, And the last radio job I had in Michigan was at WMKC, which is in St. Ignace, Michigan, which is it's a 100,000 watt FM country music blowtorch. You pretty much heard all over the top third of the Lower Peninsula and most of the Upper Peninsula, and I was getting paid, for radio, okay, which was still horrible. And I ended up leaving there just because I was going broke.
Yeah.
I was stocking groceries and working full time just to be able to make the rent that I couldn't make.
Wow.
So it's what radio is. You eat, sleep, drink.
Yep.
Crap.
Exactly. Yep.
Radio.
That's what
and
it is.
then hopefully you make some money doing it, which doesn't usually happen.
Right. But you were at Cool 108 for a while, though, right?
Well, yeah, I went to Cool 108. So when I moved back to Minneapolis in 1989, and then I met my girl, my wife, Maureen, because I'd been doing bars and stuff like that, and I wasn't really working in radio. But when I met my wife, there's a small radio station out near Prior Lake called KCHK. It's 20 mile drive, 10 mile drive from our house out in New Prague. My wife said, well, you should just go out there, I got some extra hours you can put in, I liked radio. I went out there, and I was told by the program director that they've had people there for years and years and years, and they're not going to get rid of anybody. And what are you doing, wasting my time? And I went, well, here's my resume. Here's the tape. I do have some experience. And then 2 days went by, and he called me up and asked me how many hours I could put in, because he fired the program director in their morning job. And I think mostly because my stuff was on his desk, and the guy got under his skin one last time. So from there, I got heard because it's close enough to the cities. So the first job I got was out of KCHK was to do some producing at WCCO. And then when I went away from WCCO, somebody called me from KCHK, or excuse me, KQQL, which is Cool 108. And I took a job there. But, it was with all of that, radio was cool and all, but it didn't make me any money. Radio was almost like a hobby that I put money into. I was always trying to find enough money to live by doing a lot of other things. And it wasn't just private parties and DJing or radio. For a while, it was the restaurant business. I was a general manager of a place downtown Minneapolis. When I moved back here, I was hired as the DJ at a club in downtown Minneapolis. And then over time, and I got to know the management, I learned a little bit of something. I became a manager, and then I became the general manager. So I was on my way to making a lot more money than I'd ever had. And when that place closed was about the time that the Mall of America was being built. And there was a big management company called Harbridge that was going to be managing all the restaurants and nightclubs on the Upper East Side, and they headhunted me. And I became the general manager of a comedy club up there that I helped to build, because I was there when they were building the mall. So I helped to build it and put together systems and procedures and hired everybody. And I was the operations and general manager. And then after that, I became the operations and general manager for the Gatlin Brothers. And they had a country bar up there, which now has a bunch of video games and bowling alleys. It's almost like a Dave & Buster's. I think it's called something else, though. And it was during that time is when I kind of went back into doing, I got out of that business, even though I was making a lot of money, because I was really, really unhappy. I didn't enjoy it. I've never made as much money as I made working at the Mall of America. To this day, I've never made as much money as I worked, and they paid me a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
But I was really unhappy, and I left that job the way everybody should leave a job, at least once in their life, burning down the building. It was horrifying how people still talk about the day I quit at Gatlin Brothers Music City. So I couldn't have gone back to the restaurant business if I wanted to.
You
But because
killed.
of that, I got that karaoke gig. And because of the karaoke gig, I met my wife and Prior Lake, and then KCHK, and then WCCO, and then Cool 108. So there's a lot that happened
Wow.
within that kind of weaves it all together. But it's just, I'm a performer. I'm a gypsy. I'm less of a gypsy now that I'm a family man. But I was always a gypsy. So it was like, if there's a gig, and I think it would be cool, I just go get it. Or I go hang around it until I get it. You know, if there's a bar I want to work at, I go there and I talk to the manager. The way I got the first nightclub job, I moved, I know I'm jumping all over, but
Yeah, man, you a hustler, man. I like it.
that downtown job, when I moved from that radio job, and I quit the radio job to come back to Minneapolis, I had a friend of mine here in town who had a big DJ company, who said if I came over, put my stuff in my truck and just came, there would be a manager's job for me to manage his DJ company.
Wow.
So that's why I so quickly left and come back in around 89. But in the time that it took me to drive the 15 hours from where I was living to Minneapolis, the job evaporated, and so did a place to live. So I lived in my truck for a couple of weeks until I lied enough to a guy who had an apartment building in Powderhorn Park. He believed my lies, so he gave me a place to live, right? And while I hustled to find another job, and then I walked into every bar I could find that hired DJs, and one of them was downtown Minneapolis. And I went in and I said, you know, because this is a place I really wanted to work. And they went, hey, we've got people have been here for years.
Yeah.
And they're all really, we have the best DJs anywhere. We're not getting rid of our guys. But thanks for coming in. I'll keep your number. Like they always say, I'll just keep your number on file, right?
We keep you on file.
And but a week went by, and it was around Christmas time, or it was just after Christmas time, because the bar had their big Christmas party. And apparently at the Christmas party, a bunch of the DJs ganged up on the owner and told him what they thought of him. And the owner ended up firing everybody on the spot.
Merry Christmas.
Hey man, how many shifts can you take? I'm like, how many shifts you got? He goes, well, right now we got six nights. I'm like, I'll take them.
Wow.
So, and it was an oldies bar.
Okay.
50s and 60s music.
All right.
And it was fun. It was really fun. It was a fun bar. It was very busy. I learned a lot. And because of that is how I got into the restaurant business. But because that whole gypsy thing, it's like, I never stayed at a radio station or a town after I graduated high school, more than about a year and a half at the most. And then I'd say, I'm bored, let's go someplace. And I'd go someplace and find a town, and I'd find a job, and I'd sweep floors or doing whatever I got to do.
Right.
And I was digging that, right? And then it was coming back to Minneapolis, which made me decide that I wanted to stop doing that.
Okay.
Find a place to live.
Right.
And I wasn't thinking about getting married or finding a wife or having a house. None of that stuff. I just expected that I'd be chasing my theater work, my acting work, and my DJ parties and clubs, and
because
make money where I could find it.
Because you came to that fork in the road where you had to decide between acting and DJing, and it was at that point you were like maybe leaning towards maybe one or the other, or was it a fight for you to choose one compared to?
Well, somebody told me I had, when I used to talk about it, I heard when I got advice, it was always like, I got to choose, right? You got to choose something. And I didn't want to. Okay. And I've always seen, I never saw DJing and acting as the same thing, right?
Okay.
I didn't see the correlation. So even for a while, I was thinking I had to choose, until I realized that I'm not one kind of a performer, right? I'm really a professional show off. Okay.